What up, nerds? My name's Adrian. I love Kill Team so freaking much. And because I love Kill Team, I participated in my first tournament ever at the Kansas City Open in Kansas City, Missouri. And I learned a heck of a lot about Kill Team, about the competitive scene, and about just playing in general. So if you're thinking about going to your first tournament ever, this was my first tournament. So I would love to share all of the wisdom that was shared with me by all the experienced players in the competitive community, as well as other players that were present that was also their first tournament. So I'm going to take you through my entire list and take you through each of my 5 games and what I learned in those. And hopefully somebody will have learned something by the end. So, all right, let's get to it. I also want to say thanks to Ben from Battle Brothers Tabletop and Kill Team Casuals fame. I had a lot of fun spending time with him and having dinner with him during the tournaments. And yeah, everybody else from the Battle Brothers Tabletop Discord that I met, everybody from my Twitch channel that I ended up meeting, that was an incredible meetup. And I absolutely love spending time with each and every single one of you. So thank you guys so much for just being willing to meet with me. But anyways, here we go. So I took Intercessors. I took the Intercession Kill Team. And my chapter tactics, I ended up taking Rapid and Durable. I didn't take Methodical because it didn't make as much sense to me. So Methodical reads, you can ignore any or all modifiers to ballistic skill and weapon skill characteristics of this operative's weapon. Right, so I didn't have the foresight to think about how anyone could manage to alter my weapon skill aside from being injured. That was the only thing that made sense to me. And because Intercessors already hit up on 3-ups, 2-ups for the Sergeant in certain cases, that didn't really make sense for me. So Durable made more sense because I wanted to deny wounds so that I can keep my 6 models alive for longer. That was kind of my thinking as far as that went. Now for my attack ops, I only ever ran Seek and Destroy. I didn't feel super comfortable running any of the security attack ops. Because I wasn't very familiar with them, but also because I was very comfortable with Seek and Destroy, and a lot of them just made more sense in my head when it came to facing the opponents that I did. So yeah. And as for the equipment that I used for my team, I never took an Auspex. I realized after the tournament that it was a very popular piece of equipment. I never used it. All right, the first thing I had to really get used to was the game speed. Leading up to the tournament, I was playing with my buddy Tyler, who I brought with me. I'm very thankful to have driven with him. He and I, for 6 months leading up to the tournament, played Kasserkin into Intercession. That's all we did. We just got used to our teams and really dug into them. And we played at a much slower pace than what we needed to play at during the tournament. And so the first game, I was definitely scrambling, that's for sure. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I had to adjust very, very quickly to making decisions in a very timely manner in order to keep the game moving, but also force myself to make decisions that would be beneficial to me as opposed to just being completely reckless. And I think that really benefited my game in the latter stages of the tournament. Just having that pressure of I need to make a decision right now or something bad is probably going to happen or I'm going to be taken advantage of somehow. So I definitely think my game elevated in that sense because of the pressure that was put on to make a decision. So I think it was a good experience if you're not used to playing in a competitive context. Now, the other thing was I was very surprised by how friendly everybody was. Not that I didn't expect anybody to be friendly. I just didn't know how serious people were going to take themselves and take the tournament in this competitive contest because it was a grand tournament, you know? So I didn't know what to expect there, but I didn't have a single game where somebody was like, or where I felt like, man, this guy's just being a dick right now. Like, this is not fun for me. Like, I'm not having fun playing this game because they're just being so anal about all the rules and they're just being just huge dickheads. Like, no, I never, ever felt like that at all at any point during the tournament. Everybody was friendly. Everybody was helpful, and not even like in a conservative way. It was every time I had a question to ask about whether during the game or after the game of like, hey, what could I have done better there? Or, oh, did I forget to do X, Y, and Z or blah, blah, blah? Or, would you mind doing X, Y, and Z? Like, oh, yeah. Like everybody was just very, everybody was just very friendly and very kind of go with the flow as far as making sure all the rules were being followed and that kind of thing. So everybody was helpful. Nobody was mean or super stringent about making sure that I was following the rules my first tournament. I think a lot of me saying that, like, hey, this is my first tournament, I'm not used to this yet, really, really helped frame how they pictured kind of me and helping guide me along when it comes to like being strict on rules. Like, hey, just so you know, like because of this, X, Y, and Z is supposed to happen this way. That was very helpful for me to frame how I need to think about certain cover rules and movement and that kind of thing. So strict, but not unfriendly, I guess is kind of what I was trying to describe here. And after every single game, everybody was very willing to give me advice on how I could have played a game better. Or what tack ops I could have taken, what would have been a better list to take against certain teams. Like everybody was very, like nobody was trying to hide company secrets. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is a horde team, and because this is a horde team, it might be more beneficial for you to take X weapon or X operative, that kind of thing. Just really super helpful. I'm very, very thankful for that. Now, my first game of the tournament was against Commandos. And I was playing against one of my buddies, and I lost. Okay, I lost my first game against Commandos. There's a couple reasons for that. So I wasn't used to the speed at which you need to play competitive games, and because of that, I was scrambling a bit. Scrambling to set up the board, scrambling to select my tac ops, scrambling to play, deploy my operatives, that kind of thing. We only got three full turning points into the game. And it ended in a loss. Now, this is embarrassing for me, just a little bit, because it was this person's first game of Kill Team, full stop. And he was a great player, don't get me wrong. I mean, he had a bit of experience in 40K going into the matchup, but I've played for a year and I definitely shouldn't have lost and pulled my punches. We took a lot of opportunities to have learning moments and that kind of thing. And I think because of that, I definitely pulled my punches just a little bit. And I didn't realize how much I was pulling my punches until it was way too late, and he completely took advantage of that. So fair play to him. I'm sure you're watching. He won fair and square, and yeah, his first game ever was a win in a competitive setting, and I think that is a very impressive feat. The game ended 7-8 in his favor, and yeah, that was game one. Game two, I played against Phobos. This was a very interesting game. I wasn't used to playing against elite teams because obviously I'd been training against Kasserkin and Blooded for 6+ months up until this point. So playing against an actual elite team, one that I hadn't really read into the rules on, was actually really, really helpful. And kind of opened up my perspective on how I could be playing my intercessors. Now, what I will say is I did not take a Doom Bolter. And there's a reason for that. I hate the Doom Bolter. I do. I really do. I would never say it's not a useful tool, especially against elite teams. However, I prefer not to use it. Here's my reasoning for that. So when I see that somebody has a Doom Bolter on their team, that tells me that they have used most of their equipment points on this one model. Now, if I can take advantage of that, take out that model, and also say if somebody has a sergeant right? If I take out the Sergeant and the Doom Bolter, not only is that 33% of their entire workforce, but also that's the majority of their firepower. And that's just 6 equipment points wasted on that one model. And so my philosophy is I want to make each and every single model on my team as much of a threat as one another, so that my opponent isn't just focusing 1 or 2 models. And if those models do die, right, I'm not completely crippled as far as firepower goes. I still have 4 models that are equally as lethal as the models that died. You know what I mean? So spreading out the lethality, spreading out the threat equally amongst my models makes me feel more confident in that if I lose one, I'm not losing a huge percentage of my firepower. That's why I don't enjoy the Doom Bolter as much, and that's why I think it's such a huge risk in taking it. However, I did use one at some point. That's later. Phobos was a lot of fun. I played against a guy named Shane. He honestly was the nicest person I had the pleasure of talking to the entirety of the tournament. And we had a very, very well thought out game, I think. I ended up winning 16-12, I believe. Maybe it was higher, I can't remember. And Shane inspired me to play Phobos going forward. I realized that Phobos are basically intercessors with a lot more utility, essentially, and a lot more variance to be equipped for different kinds of opponents. And I'm very much interested in playing them going forward. And not only that, but also because Mark Garrett came in 2nd place with Phobos. And that shows me the potential and the high ceiling that team has. It seems like very much a low floor, high ceiling kind of team. Whereas the Intercessors would be a very low skill floor, but decently like medium high ceiling as well. Because I believe an Intercessor team was also in the top 10 at the end of the tournament. Feel free to fact check me on that one. So that game ended in my first win. I didn't think I was going to win whatsoever. I genuinely thought I was going to go 0-5 in this tournament. And getting that first win really bolstered my confidence and made me feel like I could be a decent competitor in this tournament. So maybe my head inflated just a little bit, which was quickly shut down in Game 3. Game 3 was against Ethan from Six-Sided Legion, who's an absolute legend, and I loved playing against him. However, it was the hardest loss I took in the tournament, but the one that I learned the most from. So Ethan took his Hive Fleet Gene Stealer spam. I had never faced Gene Stealer spam before. My buddy Derek back home is used to using 3 Warriors, 5 Stealers, and I was so prepared to see, okay, Hive Fleet, cool. I'm going to make sure my list is as shooty as possible so I can counteract his Warriors and then really mess up his Gene Stealers when they get close. It's going to be fine. But no, I was not used to complete Gene Stealer spam, and I got absolutely wrecked. So here are a couple things I think I could have done better to accommodate for that super melee heavy, super conceal list. So a couple things I absolutely did wrong. I took a regular sergeant when I should have taken an assault sergeant. I should have known that I would not have as many opportunities to shoot, and I should have just taken my assault sergeant so that we're hitting on 2s instead of 3s in melee. That is my fault. I should have really thought through that. I also took assassinate target as one of my attack ops. That was not useful. He just put he did what I think everybody should do whenever an intercessor player or anybody plays assassinate target, right? Okay, quick soapbox real quick. If your opponent has assassinate target, do not put that token on your strongest model, right? Because assassinate target, they declare it, and then you have to take the token and put it on one of your models, and then that's the model they're going to have to assassinate. Do not put that on your strongest model. Okay, so what I did, and happened several times throughout the tournament, was I would give them the token, and they would put it on their strongest model. I would kill their strongest model because usually their strongest model is also the most lethal. And you don't want to let your most lethal model just hang back and just relax and not do anything, right? You want them to be useful because usually they're very, very important to your game plan as a whole. So what Ethan did was incredible. He put it on just a regular Gene Stealer, and he let that Gene Stealer just hang back and did absolutely nothing, used Super Conceal to his advantage, and I couldn't even touch him. And I was completely denied those points. For that match, and it's amazing that I hadn't thought that people would do that, and I shouldn't have taken that in the first place, so it didn't really make sense. Now, as far as my tactical ploys go, I didn't realize that I had adaptive tactics. So adaptive tactics allows you to spend a CP and change one of your chapter tactics. What I should have done, instead of going for rapid, right? Because rapid just gives me an inch to my movement. I don't need that because the Gene Stealers are going to come to me very, very quickly, right? They were on me turn 2. Beginning of turn 2. They were all on my half of the board. And that's when I had to start like fighting for my life pretty much. So I don't have to worry about movement because they're going to come to me. Instead, I should have gone for something like aggressive or dueler. Now, dueler, if you parry with a crit, it also takes away another one of their regular hits with this. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially. Or I could take aggressive, and I will read this. Each time this operative fights in combat and an activation in which it performed a charge action, its melee weapon gains the rending critical rule for that combat. So rending being... if I crit, then I can turn another regular hit into a crit, which is amazing against these Gene Stealers, given that that's probably the highest amount of damage I'm probably going to do to them. Or melee is the method that I'm going to use to get the most damage done. So that would be really, really helpful. I think taking either of those and switching that out beginning of the battle would have been very, very helpful in the strategic phase. Now, also, at the end of the match, I noticed I still had 3 or 4 command points left, and I should have been using those. Whenever my guys were dying, a lot of them died with an extra AP on them still. So whenever they die, what I should have done beforehand or something is I should have given them the free fight action that comes with Angels of Death, or I should have used my shooting action with Wrath of Vengeance whenever it applied. So kind of a brutal game that I was not well equipped to handle. I picked a very, very shooty list. I didn't take any Assault Intercessors. That would have actually been really, really helpful in that case. Not many cases where Assault Intercessors are useful, but that is definitely one of them. And again, this was the biggest loss that I suffered. I believe I lost 20-11. I'm pretty sure. It was either 20-8 or 20-11. I can't remember. And that was game 3. Game 4. All right, the morning of the second day. I was playing against a man named Whopper who brought his beautifully painted Gellerpox. This was a really, really fun game to play. I had never played against Gellerpox or read the rules for Gellerpox before, so I was pretty much going in completely blind. Now, before I walked up to the table, I told Ben from Kill Some Casuals, I told him, like, hey, I'm playing Gellerpox, I don't know what I'm doing. He said, take a Doom Bolter. And I was like, bro, I don't like taking Doom Bolters. I don't want to do it. And he said, dude, if you're not taking Doom Bolters against elite teams, you're going to suffer. Like, it's not going to be good for you. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it out of spite. So I ended up taking a Doom Bolter and another Vengeance Scope against Whopper's Gellerpox. And it paid off the very, very first turning point. So I used my Doom Bolter, dashed across, got and shot twice against one of his Hulks that was completely in the open in the beginning, and killed it. First turning point, the very first activation of the game. Got initiative, moved, and shot twice, dead Hulk. And so again, I would never say that a Doom Bolter is not a useful tool. It was definitely useful in that moment. Probably the reason that I didn't lose every single one of my models. I was left with one at the very, very end, and I ended up winning, I believe, 16-12. Really, really fun game. And I learned that a lot of the Gellerpox plays with the intent to tie up everything in melee and then bring the Hulks in and just clean up house pretty much. Get them tied up, and then this Hulk comes over. He's got a bunch of buddies helping him, and they just slash Marines in half, man. I mean, it's nasty. Also, there's a lot of debuffs that they give to enemies whenever they're within engagement range of a model. So very, very tough to deal with. You have to shoot them before they can get to you, and you really have to use charge distances or pre-measured charge distances whenever you're fighting against them. So very well played by Whopper. That made me think. I think I was mentally exhausted after that one, but I'm very happy to have come out with the win. Also, I took TAC Ops for that game. I think it is worth noting. I took Rob and Ransack. I took Assassinate Target and Headhunter. So again, one of those things that happened. I took Headhunter, so we already had his leader to look out for, but he also put the Assassinate Target token on his leader. So me focusing down his leader got me 4 points already. You know what I mean? So all I had to do was single out one of his flies, right? Single out one of his little chaff models to get Robin Ransack, and then I was good, and then that was it. So I made it really, really easy on myself as TAC Ops wise. And again, I think it's another testament to how you should react to your opponent having Assassinate Target. Put it on your weakest model. Let them hang in the back. That is honestly the smartest move. And that was game 4. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And the last game of the tournament was against my new friend Bruns, who brought his intercessors. Now, I think we definitely were yin and yang in that game. He brought a very melee heavy list, and I brought a very, very shooty list. So he brought a Doom Bolter and an Auspex. So I got to learn how that worked. And I brought my very even, my even threat situation. So I had 2 Vengeance Scopes and 1 Reclusian Blessed Bolts, and I had a guy with a combat knife, right? Pretty easy, nothing too complex. And so I ended up winning very convincingly, but I learned how useful the Auspex can be. If he hadn't rolled so poorly on the attacks post-Auspex, I think his Auspex and Doom Bolter kind of combo would have worked very, very well. I didn't realize that all you have to do is have the model visible to deny obscuring. I thought it was they had to be visible and within 6 inches for that to qualify. So incredible use of it. And I realized after that, and also listening to the Turning Point Tactics podcast on how to win with intercessors, how useful that Auspex can be. I will definitely be using it in future games. And that was my tournament. That was all 5 of my games. I am very surprised at myself, I think, to have gone 3 wins and 2 losses. I really thought I was going to get absolutely curb stomped in this tournament. And granted, there were a lot of guys that were there for their first tournament ever. And so I had a very common shared experience with a lot of these guys that ended up competing. And it was just a fantastic sense of community but with these guys that were playing for the first time in this context. So I'm very thankful to have had this experience. There are a couple things that I would definitely think to bring next time, and I'm glad that I brought, or I wish I would have brought, and I'll share those with you. Okay, so the first thing that I'm glad that I brought, my buddy Tyler printed me this little guy. Okay, so this is an instrument to help you count your command points, your victory points, and tell you what turn it is. And it's for both you and your opponent. This was super, super helpful for both. Every single game that I played, nobody had this. And the reason I'm thankful for this is because a lot of times you and your opponent will put dice in just directly in front of you to represent your command points or your victory points. And sometimes you get them flipped around. Sometimes you accidentally grab one whenever you're rolling for attacks and whatever else, and things get confusing. So this completely takes out all of the confusion in that, and everybody absolutely loved it. I believe this is on Thingiverse if you have a 3D printer. Honestly, I would have appreciated somebody walking around with a piece of paper or cardboard. Like Sharpie on cardboard would have been great. Just, hey, I would really like to use this just so I can look to the same place for all of these things. That was incredibly helpful and useful. The second thing is having a smaller measuring device. So my buddy Ben gave me this little guy. His little neon, little see-through measuring stick. The longest side is the 3 inches, but a lot of my measuring sticks ended up I accidentally bumped pieces of terrain and I'd have to move them. I'm very notorious for accidentally bumping terrain out of where it's supposed to be and then not being 100% sure of where exactly it was supposed to be. So it's probably going to be not in its original position after the fact. And that kind of sucks because I don't want to look like I'm cheating, or if it ends up affecting whether or not somebody's obscured or in cover, blah, blah, blah. Like I don't want to be at fault for that. So having this and being able to measure several times would honestly have been more useful in that particular case. So very thankful for Ben for this, and I have been using it. I will continue to use it. So thank you, Ben. Now this is another 3D print, but if you can see it, this is a container that holds a ton of freaking tokens. This was super helpful for me and my opponents. And having extra objective markers, having extra tokens for people, and just in case, I have a place for engaged and concealed tokens as well if they run out or they need more or they need a place to store theirs or whatever. So that was incredibly useful. And also, it has a little case in it, so you're not just holding it loose all the time. And it's just right there, and you can carry it around just like a deck of cards or something. This was honestly a lifesaver in the middle of games. Also, having a little dice box to literally hold all of your dice. I have all the dice that I need to roll all my attacks. I only need 5d6, right? Because I'm playing intercessors. I don't really need more than that. I have D12s to keep track of primaries. I have D4s to keep track of my tac ops. I have D20s to keep track of the health on my intercessors, all that good stuff in this tiny little box. Super easy to keep track of, and I put it in my actual dice tray, and it fits perfectly with all of my measuring sticks and whatever else I might need. Now, also having cards with all of your operatives and having... Now, arguably, the most important thing that helped me in my first tournament was this guy right here. Now, having this card at my disposal helped me move through all of the pre-match rituals so much faster. I was not used to actually going through every single one of these until first day of the tournament, and so having one of these really saved my bacon and helped me keep pace with everybody that was used to playing in this competitive context. And I think this also helped put some pressure on me to make decisions a lot faster as well, to pick my equipment faster, to pick my operatives faster, to pick all their weapons and that kind of thing. So that was incredibly helpful. And this is a must-have if you're going to your first tournament. Alternatively, I also have cards for the scouting step, as well as all of my tac ops and that kind of thing. Those were really, really helpful just to be able to look back on and not have to try and keep it all in my mental. So every single activation, I'm just doing a quick check of, hey, am I finishing my tac ops? Am I doing all of this X, Y, and Z? What do I need to do to finish my tac ops? And also having these down instead of just having a little synopsis on a piece of paper helps me read the rules as written so that I am legally completing those tac ops, And those alongside some really, really comfortable shoes. Those are the things that I would recommend taking to your first tournament. Those are your must-haves. And they helped me very quickly acclimate to the culture and the speed of a competitive setting. So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and kind of being a part of this experience. If you were there and you were a part of the Battle Brothers Tabletop Discord or the Command Point Discord or just the TTS Discord, whatever, thank you guys so much for talking to me and meeting with me. I really appreciated spending time with you guys, and hopefully I'll get to see you all soon. Remember, life is hard. Be cool. Be safe, y'all. Have a good one.